Hi, and welcome to a special episode of Variety Tech Today. Today I'm going to be reviewing two major 3D phones in the United States. We've got the Red Hydrogen 1 and the Rokit IO Pro. Now, first off, the basic question is, regardless of 3D, which is the better phone? Well, I'll let you decide for yourself. They're both octa-core processors. However, one has a 16 by 9 screen and one has an extra wide screen. So if you watch 16 by 9 content on the Rokit, you're going to have pillar boxing, black bars on the sides of the picture. Or you can zoom in and crop off the top and bottom, kind of like a CinemaScope aspect ratio. However, in my opinion, the Red is better because the camera has better image quality, both in picture and video. It can also do up to 4K resolution and high frame rate, whereas the Rokit maxes out at 1080p. And regardless of pixel count, the quality isn't as good. I mean, it's okay, but it's not that great. They both have selfie cameras and they both have flash. However, when it comes to storage, the Rokit only has 64 gigabytes, whereas the Red has twice that, 128 gigabytes. As far as weight, the Rokit is pretty light as a feather. And the Red, well, that's a little heavier. But when it comes to everyday usability, I find the Red is much better, more powerful. Now, regarding 3D, and isn't that the most important aspect if you're going to go with either of these phones? First off, the features that are unique to the Rokit is that it has a 3D streaming service that you can subscribe to every month. I personally wouldn't do it though because it's not really worth it. You do get a free trial for several months, I believe, and that's plenty enough to see all the non-name brand content they have on there. Or you can even pay the price if you wanted to and watch it. And there's talks of them having an agreement with Universal to stream some of their movies in 3D on the service, but that was announced a while ago and it hasn't happened yet as of this filming. And even if it does, the thing is, I reached out to Rokit and they told me specifically that it will not have the ability to cast movies to a TV, for instance, a 3D TV. And in my opinion, renting movies to watch by yourself, and by necessity it's by yourself because of the limited viewing angle, is not a good idea. Nobody wants to watch movies, especially 3D movies, on their phone all the time and pay a premium for it. At least I don't. So I really don't think that is going anywhere. Red has done something similar. They also have a 3D streaming service where you can either rent or buy 3D movies, but they're expensive. They cost way more than a 3D Blu-ray would cost, and they're not getting any recent titles. Their most recent titles are a few years old, and it's not being expanded upon. Now, they use two different types of display technologies. The Rokit has a traditional parallax barrier on the screen. This is what 3D phones have often used because I think it's basically the best. The Red uses a display technology from a company called Leia. It uses a lot of marketing hype to call itself a hologram, but it really is very similar to the parallax barrier in that it shows multiple angles to your eyes. The only difference is that the Leia screen takes traditional two-view left and right stereo video or pictures, and it automates a depth map from that and converts it to multi-view so that you get several different viewpoints. The idea is that you can move your head in multiple directions and see around objects, but in practice, it doesn't really work that way. From what I've seen, this has just as much of a narrow sweet spot as a parallax barrier screen, meaning that you still have to keep your head dead center, and if you move a little bit past the point, you're going to see inverted depth, left on right, right on left, and it doesn't look right. A downside of having this multi-view is that because it's really generated from a depth map, you're getting a degraded form of the original image or the original video. This generally looks okay enough for stills, but there are often errors, depth errors, and videos really don't work that well. There's so much material, movement, that the depth map creation from the original stereo pair introduces a lot of errors, often. Another downside from this is that the resolution is lowered. Because you're getting more viewpoints squeezed in, the resolution is lowered even more. On the other hand, with the parallax barrier like on the Rokit, you're getting a high resolution image or video in the exact way it was originally created. However, the red does allow for the creation of 4-panel 3D images where you can literally put 4 discrete views into one image and it'll recognize that. And this allows for more clear eye-popping imagery without depth estimation errors. You can also view any traditional left-right stereo image or video on the red screen by appending a suffix to the end of the file name. For instance, for a left-right parallel stereo pair, you add _2x1 to the end of the file name, and that enables you to view it through the Leia Player app. On the Rokit, it comes with an app called 3D Gallery that enables you to watch 3D images and video in side-by-side format and adjust various parts of it for best playback. One other really fun thing about the Rokit is that it has an app called 3D Service. This is basically the interface, very simple. You just click that on button, and then when it's running in the background, and you go to YouTube, and for instance, and play back a side-by-side 3D video, you can turn that on, and you can also play top and bottom or other formats, and it will automatically convert it for playing on the parallax barrier screen. You just touch this button on the side, and then you have your options, such as normal 2D, half width side by side, full width side by side, or top and bottom, aka over under. You can also adjust the parallax with a slider. Like I said, this is much more mind-blowing than the red. Now when it comes to camera, I've already told you that the red has a little better image and video quality than the Rokit. However, as far as 3D camera, the red is also better. Why? Let me show you. Well, the Rokit comes with a so-called 3D camera app. It has 2 functions. One is 3D video, and I'll say right away, this is worthless. A lot has been said online about speculation regarding that second camera you see on the back, the secondary lens, the auxiliary lens. Some call it a depth sensing camera. I believe even Rokit has gone so far as to call it that. Nothing of the sort. Actually, many believe it's actually non-functional, a prop if you will, because this camera design wasn't made by them. It was outsourced from other pre-existing phone models from overseas. And like many cameras from overseas, that secondary camera is in fact a prop. If you try to use it for the bokeh effect, the background blur, it doesn't really work. It applies a preset circular bokeh pattern to the picture. So the 3D video function, all it does is record a normal video with the one lens and pushes it back a little bit into the screen virtually. So you're seeing a flat video, push back a little, no depth in the picture at all. And as for the 3D camera button, this is the old method that every 3D photographer knows of cha-chas. You know, take a left picture, take a right picture, combine the two. You can do that with any camera. The only problem is, this app doesn't include things like alignment. So, I wouldn't even recommend using this pre-installed app. There's a much better app. It's It's a paid app, but it's worth it. It's one of the few apps I've ever paid for. It's called 3D Steroid Pro. This app enables you to snap a left picture and snap a right picture. It shows the overlay while you're doing it to keep you reminded of where you're at. And most importantly, it has automatic image alignment, which is essential. Afterwards, you can also adjust the parallax to remove window violations and the like, as well as crop it. And it outputs in multiple stereo formats: parallel, cross-side, anaglyph, uh, muted color anaglyph for cases of strong reds or blues, as well as blue and yellow anaglyph, wiggle, half-width SBS for connecting to a 3D TV. And interestingly, when you're viewing it on this phone, the app also will include the option of 3D LCD. Yes, a parallax barrier. So you can view it in 3D on your screen, as well as save your photos that way. It has a lot of options, including stereograms, and it even has the option to save parallel images with the suffix at the end of the file name that will allow it to be viewed on the red hydrogen 1. When the latest beta version of 3D Stereo Pro was being made, I reached out to the creator and suggested that feature, and thankfully he added it. So now people who have the red hydrogen 1 can also use the 3D Steroid Pro app and take cha-chas and have it automatically saved that way for viewing in the Leia Player app. However, the really great thing about the red is that you've got a 3D camera built in, just the way it should be. Two lenses side by side. And it's actually nice compared to all the other 3D cameras that have been made to have one with the lenses are so close. I like that because then you can get nice normal distance shots of people and other things, sometimes even closer with powerful depth, albeit. And the other interesting part is that the red has 3D cameras for the selfies. Yes, you can take 3D selfies even. And those are even closer together, so you can get up close and still have a good amount of depth, but not too much. The red also allows you to view 3D on the screen in both landscape and portrait orientation. So what's the bottom line? Well, if you want a 3D display, if you want to show people 3D pictures or videos, especially videos, then the Rokit IO Pro is definitely for you. This is a great 3D display. The red, unfortunately, isn't, especially for video. For pictures, it's not bad, though, because not as many errors in pictures, and it works fairly well, just not as much resolution as the Rokit. However, if you always want to have a real 3D camera with you, this is a rare find, and that's why I chose the red over the Rokit. Not only because it's a better phone in terms of memory and camera quality, but also that great feature of always having a 3D camera at the ready. Now regarding the pictures that the red takes and the videos, a lot has been said, marketing hype yet again, about this .h4v file format, calling it holographic. Again, any pictures and video that this machine takes is just normal stereo pairs. There is no multi-view encoded into the thing. This is something that's done on the fly, and like I said, often introduces errors, unfortunately. But regardless of that, the good thing is that those errors are not part of the saved file. In the actual file you're getting, it's only a pure left and right image with none of the distortions that come along with that. And when you import it into a computer, it's really just a double width MP4 file or JPEG file in the case of images that are in this .h4v container file. So if you have editing software that supports 3D content, such for instance I use Cyberlink Power Director, I can import those H4v files and it just recognizes them as double wide videos or images. Then I right click on the properties, I change the 3D source format to side by side, and it'll automatically adjust it for editing and output to Blu-ray 3D. And while the camera does support 4K in 3D, the max output is 1080p, but still, it's dual full width 1080p at 30 frames a second. And another thing to notice is that there is a software update out there for the Red. It's still being supported, still being updated, and the software update allows a higher bit rate. At first it was only 12 megabits per second, which is really 6 each for each stream, but the new one allows up to 40 megabits per second for a little better image quality, a little cleaner. So you've got the good display and you've got the good camera. What will you choose? It's up to you based on your needs. I'll see you next time on Variety Tech Today in 3D.